All right, fantastic. So, yes, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you want to. I'm going to start by sharing my screen and we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing today. So, my name is Nell Eckersley. I work at the Literacy Assistance Center, and this is our 6th meeting of Google Club this year, this fiscal year. This is our 3rd year of having Google Club, and I know there's some of you who've been here for the whole time. This year we decided to use kind of as our theme for the sessions, um, all the skills or all the content that you need to know in order to take the Google Educator Certificate 1, Level 1 certificate test. And today we're getting to, I think today's the last item, the last piece of information or the area of information. And then next week we'll be reviewing everything. So it's very exciting. So I'll just go through a few slides so you have them. Again, today you have our slides in the chat. I will share them again in a little while once we are really clear we're all here. But I see lots of you are in here, so that's fantastic. We are going to be looking at, so the theme today is measuring learner progress with Google Forms and Sheets. So we're going deep into Forms and Sheets. Originally, I think this title had slides in it, and I was like, oh, how are we doing that? But slides was not part of today. So we're not doing slides today. If you have questions about slides, definitely feel free to wait till the end, and we can maybe do some slide stuff too. But today we're mostly looking at Google Forms and Google Sheets, particularly from the lens of how you could use those tools to measure your learner's progress, track information that maybe you need to track for your program. This we are we're in a weird situation. This is going to continue. Google Club is going to continue, but it's a little unclear under which funding source we have at the LEC. So I'm keeping in the stuff that we've been showing for the regular DYCD programming, but technically this week might be part of a new version. So as our Google form practice today, you're going to help me create an evaluation form for our sessions. So you'll see that we're keeping everything kind of the same, but I've taken away all the registration links because it could be that we're moving to a Zoom registration, and we'll know that in the next few, like by the end of next week, and we'll share that with you. But you'll see that the last 3 Google Club meetings for the year, next time it's going to be the review for the certification. Even if you're not interested in taking the certificate, it'll be a great time to test your knowledge and see how things have stayed with you or where you still have questions. Then our May session is a show and tell, which is an opportunity for you guys to sign up and show us some of the things you've been doing, whether you feel like you've had successes or struggles. We do that every year. And then our last session for the year will be in June, and that time we're going to be planning some work for the summer. So you can decide what you want. We're going to set intentions and do some practice for the summer. I'm just checking the chat. Yay, people are still introducing themselves. Fantastic. Yes. Yes, I will. So Samuel, I see you're asking about the review session link. I will send that to you. What I just don't know right now is whether you should be using the Zoom link or the JotForm link. So by the end of next week, I will send that link out to you, and I'll make sure that you get it. But yes, so right now we don't have the links here because I just don't. If I gave you a link today, you might have to register again. It just seems like a waste of time. So I will get you those links though. That decision is still in the air, but it should be finalized next week. So Google Educator Level 1 certification, as I said, this has been our theme for this year. There are several levels of certification. There's level 1 and level 2 just for educator, and then there's, I think, trainer and coach and other levels you can do. So there's absolutely no requirement that you take the test, but this, as I said, is getting you prepared for that. So that just became a theme for us. You can see here that it says that it's valid for 3 years and that it's 180 minutes long. It's not 180 minutes long. So the way you take this exam is you sign up for it, you register for it. It is $10. and then you can't take it straight away. There's like a little delay. You'll get an email once you do the registration, and it will tell you that they will be back in touch with you. And then within 24 hours, they'll send you a email that will let you join your test, and you'll have a certain amount of time, like a certain amount of days, like 2 or 3 days to take the test. So you kind of want to do it close to when you can take the test, but not right before you want to take the test. It's going to take, a day or so before you can take it. When I did it, I was prepared for 180 minutes, and I would say it took me 45 minutes. No, you have that 180 minutes, so you can relax, but also just it's not that long of a test. It's a lot of questions. We're going to see today some what they call knowledge tests, knowledge checks. It's very much like that. So it's mostly multiple choice questions. The tricky thing is often you have to answer two of these are the answer, not just one of them. So you have to read very carefully. And I will say that this certification was developed for K-12. It was developed for people who are working within education systems that have Google Workspace for education. So you may at your work have Google Workspace, which is sort of it gives you much more memory, and it allows you to have shared drives, and all that's really fantastic. But they have a specific one for education, and it does add some functionality to Google Classroom, for example. It adds some other functionality that we can't access without having that. So while it's the reason that we thought people might want to take this is just because it is something to put on your resume, and it does demonstrate your knowledge level. It is true that some elements that you're going to be tested on are not things we're ever going to use. So that's maybe a reason not to do it. For me, it's kind of a fun thing to do. I've seen people put it in their signatures, certainly on your resume. It definitely is a internationally known certification. And we don't have a lot of those for us teachers and adult ed. So it could be a good one for you to try out. My plan for the summer is to get ready for the level 2 certificate. So we'll see how that is. So while we've been covering all this content this year, you actually can go in on your own pace, and all the things that we're covering here, they take you through on this platform. There's Skillshop and the basic use of Google Workspace Education Fundamentals. This was particularly designed to prepare you for this level of certification. So you'll see a lot of things that I'm going to cover with us. I'm taking from what they provided just so I make sure that you're getting everything that they think you should have. And then we're going to cover anything else that you guys bring up today. So this is free, and this is something that you could go in and do at your own pace. It's usually a video, maybe a little activity. It's pretty light work, but it is something you have to go and do. And it's easy, for that to fall off the list of to-dos. So you have all that in the slides. I said to folks as they were coming in, so I shared with you the link to the slides today. And my question to you is, how will you get back to these slides 2 weeks from now? What are you going to do today so that you know where these slides are? What are some ways to keep in touch with these slides? Go ahead and unmute if you have suggestions.
Download it?
Was that you, Angela?
Yeah.
Yes. So downloading is absolutely a possibility, right? How would you download these slides?
If you go to the slides, there is a file under file, like there is a download option.
Beautiful. So under File, we have the option to download, and we can even tell it to download it in different file types. And then you could put it somewhere that you know on your regular computer, right? So if you're more familiar with Microsoft, or you're working on a computer where you feel like you're usually doing stuff like that, I can see why you might want to download it. The downside of downloading it is if you guys ask me questions today that I can't answer, or some topic comes up that's super exciting, or you have resources you want to share, and I want to add those to the slides after our session today, and you want to keep up to date with the most up-to-date version of my slides, if you've downloaded it, it's like taking a photograph, right? It's a stuck in time situation. So there's nothing wrong with downloading it, but you are stuck with the version 1.0. So if you want to have access to the freshest version of my slides, what would be another way to manage where you put it, curate it?
Share it?
So we have share, and share would certainly allow you to put it into your shared with me. So if we're looking at our drives, when we look at my Google Drive here, we have home, we have my drive. If you have workspace, you'll see shared drives. But if you don't have workspace, you won't see shared drives, or if you're not involved in any workspaces. But we have this area called shared with me. And actually, you don't even have to share it with yourself. If you go there now, just by opening it, you've technically put it into this, it should show up in this area. So you will be able to find it in your shared with me if you do nothing else but open it. Once I've given you the link, that's what Google looks at and says, oh, this was shared with you. The downside with this particular organizational tool is that it's chronological and it stuff is just going to start to pile on top of it, right? If other people are sharing other things with you, they're going to come down on top of it. If you remember the name of the workshop, if you remember my name, you could probably search for it here, but it's a very, it's not a very curated area. It's kind of like your inbox. Like, yeah, it's in there. I can go
Yeah.
find it, but I have to remember the name of the person who sent it to me. So not wrong. None of these are wrong, but not the most efficient way to handle the specific situation. So we've said so far that we have the ability to download, right, which was under file, which is really good to know about. And now we know we could share it, but it's already been shared with you, so that's already there. Does anybody see another option in this particular tab that we could do something with?
Shortcut.
Shortcut, thank you, Marika. So here we have add shortcut to Drive. And this little symbol here, you might be seeing that also up here. I don't have it because this is mine and I don't get it automatically. And once you've used it once, it'll disappear from up here. But the first time you open something that someone shares with you, this little icon will be up there, or you can always find it under File. And shortcut means you get a special little door into the live document. So it's different than downloading it, different than making a copy, which are both frozen in the moment that you made the download or you made the copy, because a copy is another way to do this. So the shortcut keeps you connected to the live version of these slides. And shortcuts are kind of cool because you can have shortcuts more than once. So say you have a folder that's Google Club, but you also have a folder that's Google Sheets, where you keep all your information about Google Sheets. You could put a shortcut in both of those folders so that when you go to those folders, you see everything there. You don't have to keep moving around. And the way you know you have a shortcut, if I go back to my drive, let's see if I go to my drive. So something that's shared, you can share a whole folder, make a shortcut to a whole folder. You're going to see this little arrow that tells me it's a shortcut. The original of this exists somewhere else, but I've made a shortcut here so I can get to it easily. So you can do that with whole folders, or if I scroll down really far, we'll get to my documents. Let's see. So you'll see also that some of these folders have other little people in them. That means that more than one person is in them. I've shared this with somebody else. So they didn't make it, this is not a shared, this is not a shortcut, but this tells me that more than one person is in this folder. And I've got a lot of stuff here. Let's see. And I might not have a lot of oh, there's one. There's a shortcut. So there's a shortcut on a document. So you'll see here that all of these documents have little icons beside them. That tells you what kind of file it is. And when you get the little arrow on it, that tells you that it's something that's a shortcut. So it exists originally somewhere else, but I can get to it from here. So shortcuts are very handy, and I highly recommend, if you start using Google quite a lot, I think you'll find a lot of use of shortcuts. So if you're going to make a shortcut from the slides, you would be in here. You could go to that little icon up there. You could go over here, click on Add Shortcut to Drive. And then you have to decide where you're putting it, because this is the real responsibility, is curating enough so you know how to get back to it. So Google always likes to suggest things to you. Maybe this works. Maybe you're already going to see a folder there. It's pretty smart. But if you haven't made a folder for Google Club or for Sheets or however you want to think about putting this, you might want to go all the way over to all locations. Go to My Drive. And then if there's not, this will show you everything in your drive. But if you don't already have a folder for this content, then you could click on this little symbol down here and make a new folder. And you're going to give it a title. So maybe this is your Google Club folder. Maybe this is Google Sheets. I'm going to call it Google Sheets for today. Practice examples. It can be whatever you want. No one else will see this, just you. I'm going to create that folder. And now I have to make sure that I click add because I just made a folder. I haven't put my thing in the folder yet. This is the same with Microsoft, right? If you create a folder and then you have to put the thing in there. So I'm going to click add. And it even tells me here that a shortcut has been put in there. And then if I go to my drive, now I could go back and try and find that folder. So you want to make sure it's a folder name that you're going to remember. Generally, your drive is alphabetical. My little trick is to put numbers in front of folders that I'm using a lot right now. And then when I'm done using them, I take the number 1 off. And then so numbers come first, then letters. You can sort it by some of these other categories. It's just very wonky, but you can search pretty well in here. So if you kind of vaguely remember Google Club, you might be able to find it that way too. All right, that was totally not off topic. I like to talk about that every time. But it is an important thing to be thinking about. And especially if you're working with your learners, you want the sort of the underpinning of feeling more comfortable and maybe more resilient around using technology is feeling that you know where your stuff is. So it is important to get kind of clear in where stuff is. Bookmark the slides. Nice. So that's another option because I'm in Chrome right now. I'm looking in the chat, so thank you, Wei Hung. If you're looking at any Google file, it's technically a URL, right? There's a URL up in this Omnibox here. And I can go ahead, and this is true on every browser, but as I'm in Chrome, I'll show you how it does in Chrome, to make a bookmark, which is not using the Google Drive stuff, it's using the Chrome bookmark tool. If I click on the star, I get to say where I want my bookmark to be. And this works. It could fit under digital literacy skills. So this folder, if you look here, you'll see I have quite a few bookmark folders. So you can make bookmarks out of things too. And that includes any kind of Google file, a website, where you have to go do your time cards. Maybe you have a favorite website that you like to go to. So you might have bookmarked those. So yes, absolutely, you can bookmark it too. I would only say bookmarking for me is like something I'm using a lot. So if my time card would be something I might bookmark, and then I'd take it out. If I was being really good, I'd take it out when it was finished. We do quarterly bookmarks, or quarterly time cards. I don't think, so I have Google Maps up there. I do have some documents. I'm not going to do this, remove that. So yeah, here I have digital equity. Right, so this is a tracker for all the digital equity plans across the country. That's something I might want to get back to frequently. So that made sense as a bookmark. If these slides are something you really want to use a lot, then maybe it's good to have it as a bookmark. But that's kind of how I would think about whether it's a bookmark or whether I was putting it away in a folder. But I like that idea. I'm going to try and go back. Let's see. Yes, fantastic. All right, so fantastic. So now hopefully you know how to get back, but I will be sending you the link. So you can relax and rest on that idea too. All right. So the two tools we're talking about today are Google Forms and Google Sheets. I make a big point of highlighting the icons that go along with each Google tool, because when you're looking at your tabs across the top of your browser, you can immediately tell what kind of file is open. And that is, again, this sort of wayfinding thing, right? So if I tell you to get to the Google Slides, and I know that slides are a yellow icon, I don't even have to read what's going on in these tabs. I can just look for that icon and that can help me get around. So you want to help, again, I'm saying all this largely for you to think about when you're working with your own learners, that you want them to be very aware which of these icons tells you what kind of file type it is. And that just, again, helps people feel a little bit more positioned and where their stuff is. So forms are purple, Google Sheets green like money, as someone else told me once with our, which is really, a calculation area or data area. So the skills they want you to have, we're going to start with forms. They want you to be able to create a Google form as a survey or a quiz. They want you to be able to add a question.
Okay,
So,
here's a survey
oh my
slide.
goodness. My phone heard me asking and is telling me something about Google Forms now. That's too much. So editing a question in Google Forms, making questions required, finalizing your form, and sending your form. And you'll see in the practice materials that they don't even have the newest stuff, which now you have to publish your form. I don't know if you've seen that. So to get us started, how do we get to forms? How do we get to Google Forms?
Is it in Google Drive?
Absolutely. One
Or-
way. Go ahead, Sean. I know.
Forms.google.com.
Nice. So we have a couple of different ways. Again, nothing's wrong. I'm always looking for the most efficient way. I'm going to talk about Angela's way first, and then we'll talk about Sean's way. So Angela mentioned in Drive that you can get to most file types, right? And if you're someone who has Drive open, I have Drive open all the time, and I probably do use this way the most, which I go up to here where it says new. And when I click on new, I get to see all the different kinds of files I can make inside Drive, and you can see some things have gone away. So again, another reason why knowing those little icons is helpful. Here I see my purple forms. So that's one way to get there. But if you don't have Drive open already, you don't need to open Drive to get to forms. So this is what Sean suggested. So we're going to open a new tab. I'm going to type in forms.google.com. And what we've seen is that this rule works for almost every tool in Google. So if you want to get to docs, docs.google.com, right? If you want to get to sheets, today we're going to talk about sheets, sheets.google.com. Gmail is interesting because it's not gmail.google.com, but it is mail.google.com, calendar.google.com. So try that out. If you don't have your Drive open and you want to get to a tool, try out that as a possibility. So when I type, so I'm logged into my Google account. My Drive is open, but even if my Drive was closed, what happens when I type in forms.google.com is I get to this screen, and what do I see here? I see templates, and I see all of the forms I've made. So this can be another helpful way to search for something if you know that you made a form and you can't find it in your Drive because you just can't remember the name or it's not popping up. You could try going to forms.google.com and it will show you all your forms, and it's a little easier to kind of scroll through and be like, oh, there it is, right? So that can be handy as well. I usually am creating forms from scratch, but what I realized today is that there are some really great templates here, and we're going to start with a template just because it gets us kick-started. So I can click on this little arrows and it's going to show me all of the templates that they have available to us. If you want to make a blank one, blank form is right here. The ones you've used are going to be up here or that you've looked at. Then they have some suggestions for personal ones, event registration, work ones, customer feedback, and education. And as I mentioned, I need to create a new evaluation for you guys. So I'm going to try out this course evaluation option down here on the bottom. So to do that, I just click on this. Yes, Sean, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Isn't a third option of getting to forms would be going to the waffle on the right?
Thank you. Yes, it would. So when you're in Chrome or you're in your Drive, you will often see that little 9 dot square, which we do call the waffle as an easier way to refer to it. And that is your app launcher. So if you see that option, that is definitely another way that you can get to all the tools, all the different apps, and you can rearrange this. So if you're someone who uses, you know, you never use maps on your computer and you don't want to see it, or it shouldn't be in the top part, you can move that further down and move whatever you want up at the very top. So this is sort of what we call above the fold. So these are the ones that are most easy for me to get to. And that's something you just left click, hold, and drag, and then you can rearrange that however you want to. So what's weird is it's a little random. I definitely know this shows up for me when I'm in my drive, but if I go to a new, yeah, it shows up if I go to a new tab, but when I was in my Forms one, for example, I don't see it. So if you don't see it, then you can't use it quite the same way. But if you see it, certainly, yes, that is a really great way to get to things as well. All right, so we went ahead and took their template, and now we can edit it any way we want to. So I'm going to review it first to see, and when we're talking about forms, there's a front end and a back end. How many of you have used forms a lot or feel comfortable with forms? You've probably taken a lot of forms, quizzes and surveys. Yeah. So when you're talking about forms, you have a front end and a back end. The back end is the part we're going to look at right now. That's the side that the creator uses, and it's the one that requires you to have an account. So if you don't have an account or you're not logged into Google, you cannot create a new form and you cannot edit the back end of a form. And then the version that we see when someone sends us a link to take the survey or take the test, that's called the front end. And the front end, I don't need an account to take that quiz or that survey. To see the responses, I need to be logged into my account that I use to create the form. So those are important pieces. So if you're not logged into Google already, you cannot do this. But if you're in there, you can certainly go in right now. So there are first two things to notice. We have a name of the form that the person who's going to take it sees, right? So this might be course evaluation. But up here is the file name that I'm going to see inside my Google Drive. So it might still be course evaluation, but maybe I'm going to add 2025 Google Club. So I will see this. This is a sorting tool for me, but the people taking this are only going to see course evaluation. So you can have different names there. By default, if this was starting from scratch and you type something in here, and you clicked up here, it would automatically take whatever was here up there, and then you could edit it. So that's a shortcut, but either way, you get to decide. They can be the same, they can be different. But the important thing is to know you see this one, and the person who you're going to send this to take it sees this one. So they've already put a lot of stuff in here, right? We have class name, we have instructor. What does this little red asterisk mean?
Required field.
Required field, exactly. So in here right now, nothing is actually being edited, but I see this blue line down the side. And generally in Google, the blue line always indicates where you are, what's active, what you're actually working on. Like if we look at the slides for today, and I want to change the text box, if I click on this, I get blue lines. If I was doing Google website, I would see blue lines. So blue lines generally tell you what it is what is active, what is the thing that you're actually editing. And that's, again, another wayfinding thing that's important for people to notice. So I know that right now I'm in here, so I could edit this. And then this is the first question. If I click on the question, now this is where it really is active, right? So when I click on it, that's when I get all these other options. I get to say if it's required or not. I get to change the type of question it is. I get to decide if I want to put a picture in there. I can, if I do those 3 dots, I can write a little description. If I wanted to, I could use response validation, and that means that you have a very specific set of responses you'll accept. So this is when, you try and type an email address and you leave out the @ sign and it stops you because you haven't made an email address. That's this validation. Generally, I don't use it because people get stuck very easily. Like I've seen it with dates where they didn't do like a 03 for March. So I tend to stay away from those, but that can mean that your data is messy. So there are reasons to use the validation if you feel like people can do it and you need that data to be clean. Okay, so class name is a short answer. We have over here short answer. We have paragraph, multiple choice, checkboxes, drop down, file upload, linear scale, rating, multiple choice, grid, checkbox, grid, date, and time. What is the difference between a short answer and a paragraph, do you think?
There's a word limit on the short answer
So there's actually
or
no
character number.
there's no character limit, but there is a limit on how much you see at a time. So when I'm typing in my answer, if my answer is going to be spaghetti or ESL Thursday, short answer is just fine. Nell Eckersley, oh, that will fit there. But if I'm going to write more than 2 or 3 lines, if you keep the short answer there, I can write all my stuff there, but I'm only ever going to see 2 lines at a time. And I'm guessing we've all had experiences like that where you're trying to put stuff into a text box and you can't see the beginning, even when you're texting a message on your phone, right? You have to scroll up and down. So if you know that the question you're asking could have multiple lines in it, then paragraph is a better choice. But there is actually I've not hit a word limit or a character limit. It's really just that visual piece. So that's why it's good to be aware to use one or the other. So class name, short answer makes lots of sense. Instructor, similarly, short answer makes lots of sense. I'm not even going to edit that. Level of effort. So they're using a type of question here. Let's go and look at it. Multiple choice grid, right? So this allows you to ask multiple questions that have the same set of answers. I very rarely use this because the data, we'll look at it in a moment. So when we get our responses, the original way you see the responses is up here, right? We're in the question section. If I click on responses, once I have responses, I'll see those there. And then we have settings over here. But what happens with responses usually is I do want to link them to sheets. So we'll look at this. I'm going to share the link to you and you're going to respond and we're going to look at what the data looks like. Because depending on how you want the data to appear in your spreadsheet, you're going to ask questions differently. Okay, so we have class name, instructor, level of effort. If you want to add something new, you could type it in here. If you want to get rid of something, you can click X here. If you want to get rid of the whole question, you have a little trash can down here. If you click that people are required to have a response in each row, that means that if they're not putting something in every row, so let's go back and look. So you can look at this, see what the front end view looks like by going up here. We have all these different little icons. So this eye icon means preview. And watch what happens. So this is my tab where the back end of my form is. When I click preview, I still have my back end over here. It actually opened a new tab to the right of my back end tab. So I can toggle back and forth if I want to. This is what the form looks like to the person taking it. So in this case, we don't want them to select something for each of these, right? We just want one. So we're not making it required. Similarly down here, this is where they put in several questions. And again, we can't say that we want something in every box because that doesn't even make sense. So that means that it's hard to make these into required questions. Let's go back to the backend view. So again, it is a nice format, right? To see this is kind of nice as a person taking this evaluation, rather than having this be 1, 2, 3, 4 separate questions. this is something nice to see it in a layout. But again, we'll look at how the data is gathered from that. Skill response. Okay, so we're gonna change the words. Well, let's go ahead and make a new question so we can look at that. So when you want to make a new question, it will make whatever question you're in. If you come over here and click the plus sign, it's going to make a new question right below that. But we can always change the order of the questions by dragging on those 6 little gray dots. So again, in Google, a general rule is that you can move things around whenever you're over those dots. And another reason you know that is you get that 4-way arrow, which again is another rule in Google and Microsoft too, I think, that a 4-way arrow means move, a 2-way arrow means change size. So 4-way arrow, as I scroll over, that means I know I can move things around. All right, so if I want to make a new question and I want it to be, what's the difference? So we talked about short answer and paragraph. What do you think the differences are between multiple choice, checkboxes, and drop down?
Checkbox, you can put more than one.
Exactly. So if you have a question where people can only choose one answer, you want to use multiple choice or drop down, and they can only put in one answer. If you want them to select all that apply, or choose 2, or whatever you want more than one, then you want to use checkboxes. And this is actually another moment to notice that this is actually quite common across testing types. I'm not sure what the GED is like, but I know like the GRE I took a few years ago, and I feel like I've seen this even on TABE, that a circle means you can only choose one answer, and a square generally means you can choose more than one, and you may be directed to choose more than one. That's another thing for us to notice, because that will be true. It seems to be something that works across the universe, not just in Google. And Dropdown is lovely because it doesn't take up a lot of space. So say you were going to have a list of all the states on here, and people can only pick one state. A dropdown will be a much nicer design than a long list with a checkbox beside it, right? But other times it's much nicer to have the 4 things so you can look at them all at one time constantly without being on the dropdown. So you have to decide which way you're going to go. There's like no 100% wrong or right, but those are the things to consider. How many options are there? If there's a lot of options, more than 10, more than 5, I don't know. I would tend to do a drop down. If you want more than one answer, do check boxes, but be careful about that because all that content again is going to go into one cell in your spreadsheet. So sometimes it makes sense to break questions out. Okay, so we're going to make a question. So I can type whatever I want in here. We noticed also, I keep adding new questions. So to delete questions, again, I just did a little trash can. We'll go back to this one. So we've talked about short answer, paragraph. We have multiple choice, checkboxes, drop down. File upload is an interesting one. So people can upload, like we've done this when we were maybe doing a registration form and you want someone to include a picture of them, or I don't know what else you might be asking them for, a signed document or something. That you can include a file upload as an option here. And all that, everything that people upload from that through this form will go into one folder in your drive, which can be very handy. Linear scale, I think we've seen some of those maybe up at the top, or there were some questions here where you get to say, between 1 and 7. That's a very common evaluation tool type of question. Rating, which is new and I've never used, but I'm guessing you get to do 5 stars or something. Let's try that one. There you go. So let's say rate this session. All right, so we could change the amount of stars. We could change symbols. We'll leave it with the stars, and we'll make it required. If I wanted to add description, that's where I can add some directions. So when I do include a question where you can answer more than one, I want more than one option, I say check all that apply, that's where I would write that. So select the star number 1 is 4 and 7 is fantastic. There are no rules when you're making a form, whether it's a survey or a quiz or whatever, how you capitalize things or whatever. So you just want to create your own rule with that, whether you're using periods or whatever. This one doesn't have I'm not using periods. You also can't, it won't automatically number them, so you have to go in and number them. The downside of numbering them is that if you do move things around, then you have to renumber them, and it's just it's easy to kind of get mixed up when you're doing something like that. So again, if we look at what the version is for other folks to look at, there's no numbering, they'll do it in order. If this is something you want to refer back to, so you want people to say, well, on question number 2, I really didn't know the right answer, then having numbering would be a helpful technique to make it easier to indicate which one. So this one is prettified. So we see we have these little guys. Anyone have a question? Sean, were you going to unmute?
Sorry.
No, I didn't mean the bad thing. I was wondering if people had questions. So there are add-ons, which mean other extensions that you can add. You can see on mine that I have this guy. This allows you to record your voice, which I don't know why it's showing up here. I know there was another one I've had that would let you put mathematical writing in. So there are extensions you might want to add depending on the content that you're asking about. Obviously, there's AI now, so you could probably tell AI to create a form for you, and then you could go back and edit it to be the way you wanted it to be. Customize the theme, so that's what I was talking about just now. They've put in an image, so they have this for the end of a course. If I click on that, I get this sidebar. And the sidebar lets me change the font. I don't think there's a lot of options. Oh, maybe you can use any font. Well, that's exciting. Let's change it to Sand Creek. Fantastic. It used to not have that option, so that's very exciting. There's a header image, so there's already an image here. I can get rid of that image and I can choose one. They have some images already in here, or you can upload your own. And if you're familiar with Canva, Canva makes it very easy to make Google. It's actually Google Classroom is the same size. So Google Classroom or Google Form headers, they have a template for, and you can make it however you want and upload it. The themes are kind of fun though too. So there's a lot of options here. This is to do with education. Let's go through and find, and sometimes you want to be thematic, sometimes it doesn't matter. Let's go with the universe one. And once you pick a picture, it's going to suggest colors to go along with that. So you can go with the colors it suggests, or you can add your own color. And the colors really are just the background color and then what the active color is. So you can make those choices. And now if I go to see let's see if I refresh that. Yeah, so that's what they see when they come to it. All right, so let's look at what we were supposed to know how to do. We saw how we could create Google Forms, right? We know where we can find them. So they're either in our Drive, we can go to forms.google.com. We saw how to add questions. We saw that there are templates where we could start with some questions already made. We saw how to edit the questions. We saw how to make them required. What we have not done yet is to publish. So this is, I only think this is a couple months old. In the past, you didn't have to publish. It was just automatically available. You just had to share the link so people had a link that they could get to it with. You do have, so let me, this is still the share. There are 2 levels of sharing. One is to share it so that someone's a collaborator with you, meaning that they get to see the back end and they could help with questions, that they're going to look at the responses, or there's share it with people who are going to be taking it and will only see the front end. So if I click on share right now, it's going to mention that, right? It's going to say editor view is restricted, responder view, anyone with the link, but I have to publish it first. So let's just get rid of that. We'll go ahead and publish it. When I'm publishing it, I get to decide how are people going to be able to access this, or how do they get access to it. By clicking manage, I can make some choices, but I'm good with that one, right? Anyone with a link, the other options are restricted, or it's dead. Like you don't want it to be alive anymore, and then you would remove the link. So anyone with the link is good. And we're going to click done, and we're going to click publish. So once it's published, now I can copy the responder link. So most of the time they assume that you want to share a link with people who are going to take the quiz or take the survey. If you did want someone to come in and work on it with you, that's when you might want to add their email addresses here, and then they will see this form. Or you could share your folder with a form as sitting, which is the old way of doing it. I think it must be easier now. Let's see if I can do it this way. Yes. Anyway, that to me is still new, and I'm still a little confused by it, but I don't often share my making in the background. And if I do, my way is to put it in a folder and share the folder with other people so they can see the back end. So I'm going to copy that responder link, and I'm going to give it to you in the chat and ask you to respond. And that way we can go look at the data that we get from that. And it's not serious. This is not a serious survey, so you can write whatever you want to. So take a few minutes to do that, and then, like I said, we'll look at how the data looks in the spreadsheet. Now, if you ever wanted to share it as a QR code, I'll put it up here as a QR code too, because the nice thing about Google Forms is they are very mobile friendly. The format is made to look and be very functional on a small screen. So if I give you a QR code, you can scan that QR code and take it on your phone rather than doing it on the computer, if your choice.
Now, does it come with that, or did you create a QR code? Like, did you put it on Padlet or something? Or
So
use
this
another app?
So this QR code, again, I'm in Chrome, and you can make any website into a QR code in Chrome. So I'll talk about that after the form. But yeah, another way is to put it into Padlet, certainly. I've also added a shortcut up here, which I kind of forgot that I had. So you can add this as a shortcut, and if I click on that, it will just automatically make my QR code. It's even faster. And then if you wanted to take this and put it in your presentation or on a document, we could do it over here. So that way I just right-clicked, or I just copied it and pasted it in. So there it is. You can tell it's one that's made by Chrome because it has that little dinosaur in it. So I can see how many responses I have just by looking here, right? I can see that the responses are coming in. So right now I'm still looking at the screen where I made the actual form. If I click on the responses now, it's going to automatically put things into different kinds of graphs. I don't have a lot of control over this. Sometimes the graphs are not what I want, like I would prefer a pie chart or something like that, but it does give you some basic information. and it's a quick overview. You also can look, so this is a summary of everybody's responses. You can also look at it by question type and see the responses specifically to that. Or you can look at it individually if you want to see each person. And in this case, this is an anonymous survey, so I don't know who each person is, so it's unlikely that the individual helps me. But again, if you want to go deeper with the data, you certainly can do that. So generally, we're looking at the summary here. And then you can copy each of these charts if you wanted to put them into a slideshow. So say you were doing a survey and this gave you lots of really great information about when do people like to take classes and what subjects are they interested in. That might be a great presentation. And you'll have these various kinds of images that help explain the data. As I mentioned, though, we have this option of linking it to Sheets. And that's kind of how I use a lot of this. So if I send out a Google form, or maybe my program has a Google form when you come in and you're interested in the program and you type in your name and your phone number and your email address, I want your email addresses, right? So the easiest way for me to be able to get to your email addresses or to use them would be to have them in a spreadsheet. And in this case, that would be done automatically. So I'm going to click on Link to Sheets. You may have an existing sheet that you want to add this data to. Maybe you've used this form many times and you want it to continue in one ginormous spreadsheet of all your evaluation information. We don't want to do that. So we're going to go ahead and say, yes, create a new one. So we're going to click on Create. And whatever folder you created that form in, this spreadsheet is going to be there as well. And they're going to have the same name, but one is going to be purple icon and one's going to be the green icon for the spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet looks different than it used to as well, because now they've added all these weird colors and stuff, and I'm a little frustrated by it because I'm still not using any of that stuff to do what I need to do. So I need to learn this. I need to learn the new bits still. But it basically, every question is a column and every answer is, each person answering is a row. So if this was email addresses, I would have a lovely set of email addresses I could use right here. What I'm interested in seeing, again, this isn't so interesting, it's not so helpful, but what I wanted to see, oh, it's nice, it's spread out. Okay, what I remember, I was a little frustrated in the past because when you use these guys, the data would get all scrunched into one box, and I would get very confused by that. So it looks like this data comes out very nicely here, right? I could really see, and this data is not so useful to see here, but like if I was seeing that, 5 people wanted ice cream and 2 people wanted Snickers bars, that's something I could see here very easily. The strongly agree or not, that is probably easier to see visualized in bar charts and in pie charts and things like that. Any questions or anything you've seen in forms that we didn't touch on or that you were interested in being able to do with Google Forms? What we did was a survey, so there were no wrong answers, right? But you might want to do a form where you have questions in a quiz format where there are right and wrong answers. And again, you can do that. So say we were in my drive and I went to new and I wanted to make a form. If you scroll over here, I'm lazy. I usually just click on forms and I get a blank form. But if you know in advance that you want to make a quiz, you can click on blank quiz and it will already be set up to be a quiz. And what a quiz means in Google thinking is that there are wrong answers and right answers, and you can actually program this to tell it what are the right answers or wrong answers, but only for multiple choice questions, right? So it can't read someone's essay and understand that, but it could answer, you could do true false questions. You could have, you can do multiple choice of any kind. So true false become multiple choice as well. So when it's in this format, you see you have an answer key option. So you get to put in what is the right answer, what is the wrong answer. And then when someone takes the quiz, they'll get their they'll be told straight away how they did and they could take it over again. So quizzes can be a really nice tool to help people practice certain kinds of learning, but it is limited to multiple choice. Any questions?
I have one, Lil. So to make it anonymous, so I guess it wasn't required to add your email address on your form?
So on my form, let's see, I wasn't very smart and didn't look through it because it was a template. Was there an email address at the end?
In the beginning, but I don't know if it was required. Oh, here. Yeah.
Maybe I deleted that after the fact. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, you get to decide, right? There are times I feel like with evaluations, for example, I like to give people the option of telling me who they are in case they would like to follow up, or like some follow up. But I also want people to feel really comfortable to say whatever they want anonymously. So I like to include the option of a name and email address, but maybe not make it required or let people know in the directions that they can type NA if they don't want to respond. So you get to decide that, right? Like in this case, I don't even think we'll know the date. So by default, we will always know the dates when things were taken, because it will include that as a timestamp here. So you could put a date in here, but you don't really need it. Yeah, so you get to decide. Is it important to know, like if it's a quiz, again, is it a quiz where people are going to get scores and you really want to know, everybody wants to know who got what score on it? Or is it more of a practice as many times as you want? And then it can be anonymous and you can still see the answers, but you won't have a sense of who's answering what.
Thanks, because I saw my name, so I must have put in my email or something.
And maybe I deleted something. I don't know. That's so funny. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was a confusing question. Class name. You put it under class name. Maybe we changed it afterwards, but I think that's how that happened.
Okay.
Another thing in Google Forms, which is a little more complex, I'm not going to take time to do it today because we're going to run out of time, but you should know that it's possible, and you might have seen this before, you can do branching logic in Forms. So you can set it up. So depending on, like, say you gave this form to two different classes and you wanted in that first area, they would choose from one of those two classes. Class A gets these three questions and class B gets these three questions. Or if you're a teacher, you get these questions. And if you're a program manager, you get these questions. And the way you do that is you put in these sections. So you have to have a section divider. So for example, let's change this one up. So we'll say that it is, what is your position? I think I said I wasn't going to do this, but I can't help myself. Okay, so what is your position? We're going to make that into a multiple choice. And it could be teacher, program manager. And then we know there's always the possibility that you could be both, right? So now I'm going to put in a section divider. And the section divider will go right below wherever you just were. So you can always move it around again, but this is where it's going to be because I was just here. So based on this, I could now, when I go in here and I go to directions, now I'm going to be given this option, go to section based on answer. I'm only going to see that if I put in at least one section. So if you don't put a section in, you're never going to see this option. So go to section based on answer. That means that let me go ahead and turn that on. Once I turn that on, for each of these, I could say, I probably need a third section really, but I could say that if you're a teacher, you're just going to submit form. You don't even get to answer any other questions. But if you're a teacher, this is a form for you, and there's a bunch of questions for you. So it can be a nice way to have a single form, but gather different information from different folks, or for somehow you're categorizing folks, you get to do that. Again, that's advanced. That's not part of the certificate. You don't have to worry about it for now. Okay, so we did all these things. I'm going to just skip on to this one. Okay, so we also looked at Google Forms. We looked at responses in Google Forms. We didn't look at grading because we're not doing that right now. And we talked about keeping the forms anonymous by just not asking any questions that let us know who folks are. So this is what I meant about the knowledge check. So the knowledge check, when you're taking the certificate exam, it's going to look a lot like this, and you're going to have a question, and you have to be really careful because it says 2 ways. But another reason to know that it's going to be more than one is that you get that square instead of a circle. So what are 2 ways you view Google Form responses? Who can tell me?
A spreadsheet and the graphs.
So spreadsheet, right? Setting up a spreadsheet, which is part of that. And then, yeah, the tab that says responses, right? Those are 2 ways. And this tab is when you see all the graphs and things like that. So you have those 2 options. Excellent. And now, yeah, I think I duplicated that. Okay. On Google Sheets, how many are you? So we're going to cover very quickly finding averages and sums, a few formulas. Do you guys use a lot of formulas already and feeling really comfortable with Google Sheets? It's not unlike Excel, but I think a lot of us find, we know.
Absolutely not. I'm
Okay.
absolutely not. I only use it to look at the data, and maybe if I wanted to make like a sign-in sheet or something, maybe. But no formula.
And that's kind of how I am. I use it a lot for certain things, and then I don't do other things at all. So in fact, I learned some stuff as I was setting this one up. So the next few slides actually take you through the steps to do these variety of things. And I've actually created as a practice Google Sheet. Now, notice at the end of this link, I've added template preview. This means if you go to this link, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat, you can make a copy of it so we can all work on our own one. And if you want to follow along, you're very welcome to do that. You can also practice later if you're not feeling like doing it while we're all here together. So this practice spreadsheet has a couple of different tabs with data to let us practice these different functions. And Excel is very similar. So if you know Excel, so because I set it up for you to use it as a template, this is a way, if you create a single document, and we talked about this last time with Google Classroom, because Google Classroom has this built in, but when you create a document and you share it with other people, you can share it with them so they can view only, and they could make their own copy. And that's a good thing for everyone to know how to do. We talked about that at the beginning when we were talking about the slides, and that's under the File tab. You can also force them to make a copy where you don't actually get to see the document, or you can do it by taking the end of the link and putting in this template piece. I'll show it to you again in a moment. And that means we all can make our own copies. So if I click Use Template, there was only one of these spreadsheets. Now there are 2. And as you make your own copies, there's going to be 15 or however many people we have here today. So we all have our own version. So we have exactly the same document, but now we can all play around with the data and do whatever we want with it without interfering with each other's work. And the way that we did that was at the end here on the slides, I review that because I know this is something we've talked about before. Where did it go? There it is. So anytime you have a link, you can change it. And actually what I've found is you can just get rid of all the stuff at the end. So you don't even need that part anymore. So you just put in either edit, copy, present. Edit is what you get when you get a link normally. So copy, present. The template preview is new to me, and I really like template preview. So that's what I added today. So in our link for just now, I added template preview. You have to do it when it's not live. So you have to make it black and white. And then or not black and white, but not live. So the way I did that was I shared it. For example, here, I'm going to copy this link, paste it. Notice it says edit, USP, sharing, all that stuff. I'm just going to take this part and change this part for that. And now I make it live by hitting enter. And now this is also going to force you to make a template, decide that you want the template or not. Again, this is not the point for today. So if we'll stay on at the end if people need help with that, but just so you know, that's how we did this. So we are in our spreadsheet. Everybody has their own. You can see at the bottom, we have hours, grades, and contacts. So for the first, what it tells you here about formulas is the way that you tell sheets, and this is true, I think, with Excel too, that you're typing something that is using a formula is you start off by typing the equal sign inside a cell. And that tells you that you're starting a function, and then you can have the different function labels, and then you tell it where to apply the function. So in this first activity, we're doing the average. So the directions are to go to that spreadsheet, go to the second tab. I don't think I told you that part. So we're going to go to grades. And we want to get an average of this column of grades. We want to find out the average grade in this class. So the way they describe doing that is, how would you highlight all of these cells? What's your technique for highlighting cells? So an easy way, right, is I click in one and I drag this little thing down. Oops, that didn't work, right? That changed everything. So I'm going to do a Control Z. I can just hold down my left click and drag down. Now that's kind of working. And the way they describe it is you just click on that one and then you hold down the shift and click on the last item in the column that you want. And that will also do it. And I think there's another one which is like a Control A or something, but that gives you the basic idea. So this is the one that they recommend. So we've highlighted all of the numbers we want to have included in our average. And then we go up to insert, and we're going to scroll down to function. And actually, average is one of the ones that is very easy to find. So we just click on average. And it's guessing that we want to do an average of this set of numbers, which we told it. And it's going to put them in the next empty cell underneath the items we had selected. But I have to hit enter for it to actually calculate. So I hit enter. So there's our average. 106 is our average. We did this under insert, and we see this little symbol here, and this is function, and there's a lot of functions here, but you actually have this in your up here in the ribbon as well. And you might find that that's an easier way to get to some of these things, but just know you can get to it both ways. Okay, so we did our average of that one. The next thing they're asking us to do is so say you needed to figure out how many things there were, how many names there are signed up. And you can kind of usually tell by looking at the spreadsheet because you can look at the numbering down the side. But maybe this is in the middle somewhere and it's a lot of information. So in order to do this count, we're going to do the same thing we did before. Click on the top one, click shift, or hold down shift, click on the bottom one. And now I'm going to do it from over here just for fun. Move us out of the way. So if I click on this symbol, it's not just the regular count. Count will only count numbers. In this case, we have names. So we have to go down to all, and then alphabetically we go down to count A. So see the difference? Count is numbers of numeric values in the data set. Count A is the number of values in the data set. It doesn't matter if it's names or whatever. So if I click on that, and again hit enter, that tells us there are 12 pieces of data here, 12 names in this case. So again, not so useful for 12, but if this was 48, or maybe you'd highlighted half of them, anyway, you can see how it could be useful sometimes to get that count in there. The next one is grading on a curve, so doing maximum and minimums. So again, if we go into our spreadsheet and we look at column C, so again, we're going to do the same thing to highlight the whole set of data. We're going to go to insert, and then in function, we're going to look for max and minimum. So these are things they consider people to use a lot. So we'll go max, and we're going to enter. So 58 is our max, and I'm going to write this over here because when I do the minimum, it's going to overwrite my 58. So I'm going to do the same thing again. That was the maximum number. And now we're going to look for the minimum number. And I'm going to hit enter. So it overwrote where my 58 was, which is why I wrote it down here. But now we know that our minimum number is 49 and our maximum number is 58. So if you're grading on a curve or doing something where you needed to know the two extremes, that is an easy way to do it. There are other ways. I mean, I think the way that I have learned to do things without using functions is I do a lot of sorting. So I might have sorted this numerically, and I would just know then that the top number and the bottom number are. But this is technically faster and more efficient. And as you get to know what all the functions are, or the functions that are important to you, it'll become. Now this one I have to say, this is a very useful one for me because I often am taking a list. For example, I'm helping with a conference and people register, and I'm going to download a list of registrants, and then I'm going to, in 2 weeks, I'm going to download another list of registrants, and I tend to just stick them together, and then I have to go through and manually take out all the duplicates. Stupid waste of time. This will solve all of that for me. So this is to create a unique set of information. So again, if we go to the spreadsheet and we go to the contacts, if I highlight all of these guys, and then I go, so the directions here were unique AA. So let's see. Yeah, I think I can just find it. Once you learn these, you're better off than you can just type them in. You don't have to use the function in the spreadsheet itself. So I'm going to, because unique is so far down the alphabet, I'm going to copy it from here. And I'm going to, never mind. I'm just going to go insert function. I'm going to go to all, and I'm going to scroll all the way down. And I'm sure there's a better way, but if someone here knows whether I could just type the letter U, maybe for unique. So I'm going to go all the way down to unique. And I'm going to click on that. And then what's interesting is if I hit enter, it retypes the whole list, but it takes out the duplicates. So here we had 14 people here. And now we have, and this is where I could do that count again. But basically I know because I made the list that Susana Baca and Jesus Luis were duplicated. So it recognized that and it took them out. So if you find yourself, maybe you have a set of students from one week to another and their information just got mushed together in your sheets, you could now go in and find the unique list of folks. You just want to make sure that you highlight everything that should be included. Otherwise you lose some of the data, might get lost. So that was super fast. How did that go for folks? Did you try it out on your own as we were here together? Or is it too complicated to do it while we're all together? I do realize that that's still one of our struggles when we're here together. So you'll have these in the slides. On that first slide, there's also a document that has all of the functions listed. And if that's easier for you or something you want to look at, you do have that as a resource, and it lists all of the functions. It's just a little overwhelming. But if you need to look for one, you can look there too. What are your questions, or what are your needs for using because we've covered basically everything that they're not going to ask you all of this stuff, but you should be able to sort of these basic functions, maybe be able to answer multiple choice question. Yes, Sean, did you have a question?
Why would I use Sheets and not Excel?
It's really just if you're in here. So the one example right now is that you might have done a Google form and gotten all this data that is now sitting in your Google form, and you want to look at it in Google Sheets. Now you can download, if it's easier for you, like we definitely have some people who at work, my colleagues, who know how to do certain things, or maybe certain things are not possible to do in Google Sheets. So they do everything in Excel, and then they upload it into Google to share it with everybody as a Google Sheet. So you can go both directions, right? This is a Google Sheet that I created in Google. I can go to File, and I could download it as an Excel spreadsheet. So if you did get all your data from that form, and it's in a sheet, you can make it into Excel. And if that's where you prefer to work, that's just fine. If you started in a form, or sorry, if you started off in Excel, I'm trying to think, I have an example somewhere. Right, like again, this conference that I'm working with, the person who shared it emailed me an Excel spreadsheet. And at this point, I'm like, no, we should have this all. There's 10 of us who need to see this document. It should be sitting in Google so we can all see it. And so I uploaded it as a Google Sheet. Sorry, I uploaded it as a Excel document, but I also saved it as a Google Sheet, so it has both options. And that's where it might just be more efficient to stay within whatever file type you have. But if you are feeling really good about Excel, you can download anything from Sheets into Excel for sure. I think the main reason I talked about these particular things today is that if you are thinking about that certificate, these are some of the questions that might be asked. And they're not completely different than what you would do in Excel to do some of this work. It's just often I find things are just laid out differently. So like I know it's possible, but it's in a different place than if I'm in Excel or if I'm in Sheets. Anybody else? I'm guessing, so I've heard from a lot of program managers that they do attendance in Google Sheets because it's an easy one for the teacher to have access to in their classroom. And then it's also an easy one for the program manager, the data entry person to access and put the data into whatever data system. And that probably doesn't require you to do a lot of calculating, but it is helpful. You could go through there and figure out how many hours people have. And some of that stuff you can set up. This document was actually set up. One of my favorite things is another area that they didn't seem to care about, but what I particularly find useful is conditional formatting. So conditional formatting means that I could tell Sheets to turn a cell red if the person has enough hours to be tested or something like that, right? So I could go through here and we could say that if you have 40 hours or more, you're ready for an assessment. So then I go up here to format, conditional formatting, and I say, if in this cell, let's see, if it is greater than or equal to the number 40, then I want it to highlight it in green, or you could change that color to whatever color you want to. We can make it pink, whatever. And then, as I go in here and I change someone's data, like maybe they come for another 12, instead of 3 hours that day, they came for 12. As I do that, oh, that wasn't enough. I have to do 13. It will just constantly keep changing that without me having to do that. So that could be a quick way for me to know who's ready for assessment. So that wasn't part of what Google cares about for the certificate, but that is something I find really, again, working on this conference, like have people paid, There's a lot of things where just being able to glance through and find the 4 people or 5 people that need something based on data that's coming in automatically, this conditional formatting can be really helpful. So you have other things in here too. Maybe you've seen people do that alternating color. So every line, it goes green, white, green, white, green, white. It's easier to read across. That's all there under formatting. All right, so the last few, okay, so here's a knowledge check. Which is the correct formula for counting cells with text data in them? Do you remember that one? That's when we were counting all the names.
Unique A to A.
It's actually this one. So this is the
Oh.
one about counting. Yeah. So unique AA we used when we were trying to take out the duplicates. So that was a good one for that. But the question here was actually counting the cells with text data in them. So we have count and we have count A. And the difference between those is that count will only look for numbers. So if I highlighted a list of names, it would give me 0. But if I highlighted a list of names and I do count A, it will actually count whatever's in those cells. All right. Now, I will say we talked about Skillshop for studying for the certificate. There's a lot of other stuff that they have for free through Skillshop, including all of these things, organizing, searching your email, Google Chat, student work on Google Sites. I think they have a new AI one. Like, there's a lots of stuff there, so it's worth checking out. Another great resource is Applied Digital Skills lessons, which can include materials. So when I was looking today to find some dummy data for us to try out, I went and looked at Applied Digital Skills to see if they had, and they have some really great activities around using sheets for your, planning a party, or you're doing your own budget or whatever. So it's worth going and checking them out if it's something you're interested in learning for yourself or for your learners. This is that piece I kind of went over very quickly and maybe just confused you all with. But basically the idea is that normally when we share a link, we just take whatever link we're given and we share it, and then we're all in the same document together. If you want people to be able to make a copy, or you want to force them to make a copy, then this is where changing that out. But we can talk about that later if people want to stick around. This is, as I was saying, I have not yet found a tool that doesn't follow this rule, where you can find it by typing the name of the tool, as long as you know the tool. So it's not doc.google.com, it's docs. And it's not gmail.google.com, it's mail.google.com. But all of these will take you to that same first screen that shows you the templates, and then it shows you all the work you've already done in with that particular tool, which I find kind of useful. These were some of the other techniques, right? We talked about the waffle, and then doing it through Google Drive is probably the 3 main ways to do things. I'm not going to ask you to do the evaluation because I don't think we need that today. And I will be sending out the links to the next 2 meetings. Again, next time we'll be playing some games and talking about reviewing for this. So have in mind, I'll send out an email with all the topics that we've covered, and then you can be thinking about areas that you might feel like you have the most questions. I know not everyone's come to every session. Like I said, we'll also send you the blog, which shows you all of the recordings of previous sessions. So you can come in here, and I don't know if I made a link for, yeah, so Google certifications, it should show you all of the blog posts related, but maybe I wasn't really good with labeling that. Anyway, you can look, you can move through the blog by clicking on any particular tool that you want to look at, and it will show you all of the, like, we've done sheets quite a few times. So the recording is there and the slides are there. So you'll have that resource too. And again, you don't have to do the certificate now, and you don't ever have to do it, but just know that that's kind of how we've designed this whole thing. So that's how we will kind of finish up, get close to the finishing of the year. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing and see if we have some questions or comments. Oh, I like it. Anna Maria is asking about Quizlet. Okay, we can work on a Quizlet for our educator level 1 certification. So Quizlet's kind of handy this way because it's basically creating electronic flashcards, right? And we can take some, that's another reason to have things in Google Sheets, because Google Sheets talks directly to Quizlet and you can just have your questions and answers come directly from your Google Sheets. So I'll work on that, Anna Maria. But if other people do too, and maybe there's one already that exists, someone else might have created one. We'll try it out. So I will send you a email either later today or tomorrow that has a link to our slides, a link to the blog. I wait till I put the video up before I send the email out, so the video will be up on our YouTube or on the blog. And if you have questions, I'm going to stick around. I know Sean had some questions. If other people want to stick around too, we can chat more. But we are done for today. So thank you so much. That was a lot of me talking today, but hopefully that was some content there that's useful for folks. And I'm going to stop recording now.